You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Before we get started, remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Also, the podcast is available on Anchor, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Joining me today on today's cricket discussion is a current female international cricketer. She has represented the Ireland women's team in 44 one-day internationals and 68 T20 internationals since her debut in 2010. She's also the wicketkeeper for the national team, and in her career, she has taken over 43 dismissals in ODIs and 46 in T20 internationals to become the most prolific wicketkeeper in the history of women's cricket for Ireland. When she's not playing for Ireland, she is umpiring games of cricket. And in 2019, she was appointed to the ICC Development Panel of umpires, leading the way for female officials within the game of cricket. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Mary Waldron. Mary, welcome.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm well. It's great to have you here talking about your career. It's an interesting journey, isn't it, Mary? The way you got into cricket for a start is interesting. We'll touch on that a bit later on in this discussion. But as I do with all my guests, I like to go back to when they first started playing the game. And it's been fascinating hearing people's memories on the game, how they got into cricket, how they started loving it. But as I said before, your journey into cricket is very different because you didn't discover cricket or play it in your late 20s, early 30s. You were a very good footballer in Ireland and you played professionally. You played a couple of times for the Ireland side internationally and a few competitions in the football world. So growing up in Ireland, playing football, it's a big part of your life. You're passionate about it still to this day. Even though you're a cricketer now, you still have that football spirit inside you. And I'm sure you kick the football around during warm-ups as they do in the game today with all the teams. Yes. Showing the youngsters, what the veteran can do in goal or a striker, whatever you call it in football. So take us back to that journey from growing up, playing football, to then playing professionally and then making the change to cricket.
I didn't, it wasn't until I was like early 20s actually that cricket even existed for me. But I started my first soccer team when I was maybe, I think 10 or 11. I say soccer because we've got Gaelic football and people call football that in Ireland. So I have to differentiate between the two because it's definitely soccer. And then I made my first Irish team when I was 13. So it was under 16. So I played like the whole of my teenage years really for Ireland, and was soccer mad, and Man United posters all over my wall, which was pretty cool. Not now, obviously. And then that was just what I did. Even my club level soccer was really, really serious. I played in a couple of UEFA Cups and stuff like that, and did a lot of traveling. But I played soccer with actually a South African born girl who she was a goalkeeper. I played in centre mid for the college team, and she loved cricket, wouldn't stop talking about it, and we were friends, so I just kind of naturally went down, watched a few games, and that's how kind of cricket started. I'd only one memory of a kid with cricket with my dad watching it on TV and during the school holidays, and I was so bored, and I was like, what is this terrible stuff on the TV, please get it off. So that's literally the only memory of cricket I had. So it was kind of just I got roped into playing because I was sporty, and it's not a big sport in Ireland, so they were always looking for players. I was a fielder and just I basically subbed whenever I was available. And then I was still playing serious soccer, so if there was a clash, soccer would always come first. And then when I was I think I was 25, our wicketkeeper in the club went away. She was an archaeologist and she went on a dig, which is sounds way more fun than playing cricket, to be fair. So the captain at the time just said, you keep this season. So I was like, grand. I didn't say no. I didn't really care. I was like, at least I'm in the game every ball. So so I kind of just went from there. And then I probably only played a handful of games because, again, like soccer come first and stuff. But I know that the Ireland A coach saw me in a pre-season game the following season. And then I went into Irish training that weekend, actually, I think. And then I made my debut against New Zealand not long after that, about a month later. So it all happened pretty quickly, to be fair. And it was definitely most definitely picked as a wicket keeper and nothing else at the time. But I continued to play soccer alongside, and actually like I'd miss some of Super Three stuff and things like that, which is our kind of domestic cricket, to go and play club soccer. So it was still like much more of a priority for me, um, until it kind of started to get a bit more serious, and I was, you know, starting to figure out batting and stuff like that. And we then qualified for the 2014 World Cup in Bangladesh, and we were training like 6 days a week. So that's when I eventually knocked soccer on the head and gave cricket my all for the World Cup.
Absolutely. And you mentioned you made your debut. You made your debut in 2010 against New Zealand. It was the only ODI of that series, in a England town called Kibworth.
Kibworth, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, not fond memories of that debut, Mary. I don't think you would like to reminisce about your debut, but you made a duck of 4 balls, batting at number 11 as a keeper, as you said.
Yeah, at LBW. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, Ireland lost by a big margin, 159 runs. So it wasn't a great start to the career. And then a few months later, in October of that year, you went to play Sri Lanka in a T20 international in South Africa.
Yes.
And you got promoted in the order. You batted at number 9.
Oh, wow.
And you made 3 not out of 2 balls. So a bit of a red inker there. So that's
That's
pretty good.
pretty good, yeah. Can I just say you've skipped a very important game, which I absolutely love. In that same tournament in Kibworth, we actually played an MCC team, and we also played England. And I was batting 11 again, but I got not out of 29 balls that game. And the girl I was batting with she was trying to get 50. So I think there was a huge improvement from not off 4 to not
Yeah.
off 29.
Absolutely. You know, you made 0 off 4 on ODI debut, and then that game against the MCC, 0 off 29 is an improvement. You stayed in.
That was England. That was one of my career highlights.
So you then debuted, as I said, against Sri Lanka in 2010 in T20 internationals in South Africa. And Sri Lanka won by 11 runs. It was a close game at the end. What are your memories from that first ODI that you played, your first ever international match? What were you feeling? Who told you the news that you were in the team? And just tell us, reminisce.
Yeah,
what were you thinking, feeling at the time?
Those details, I don't know who told me I was in the team. I can't remember. I do remember I was wearing runners, though. I didn't even have spikes at the time, so that's that's an indication of how fresh to cricket I was. Yeah, and actually, I'm thinking about it now, and I had some good friends on the team, and I'm like, why did none of you pull me aside and go, let's go get some spikes? But anyway, I've forgiven them now. I know I dropped a catch off Sue Keneally's bowling. I don't know who was batting. And yeah, that was pretty much it. I have a photo of receiving my first cap, and that's why I remember that. That was about it. But remember, Rachel Priest whacked a few. Yeah, that is pretty much it. I remember the England game a bit more, which is a few days later because of my honestly, I love that note off 29. That was incredible. I don't know how I didn't get out. It must have been just pure luck. And then Catherine Brunt broke one of the girls' arms.
She's
that
a
was
very
fun.
feisty bowler. She is.
Yeah, she's feisty, but she's absolutely brilliant for the game of cricket, for women's cricket. She's an unbelievable athlete. So, but yeah, I remember that game a bit more. I got Charlotte Edwards was my first dismissal in that game, and then the umpire, Louise McCarthy nicked off Lydia Greenway, caught behind, and the umpire didn't give it. Of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember more details from that game, interestingly enough.
Obviously playing no DRS, obviously in women's cricket.
No, yeah.
Yeah. So, oh well, that's the way it goes, I suppose.
That's absolutely the way it goes.
Yeah. So you've had many people who've supported you along the way, your family, coaches. people who you've trusted for support. And often players have mentors to turn to, who you can rely on when you're struggling and feeling down, frustrated at your game, because cricket's such a cruel game at times. It's not easy. Playing any level of cricket's such a hard game to learn and play. But international cricket's such a hard business because it's a brutal sport at that level. So who have been your mentors that you've turned to over your career as a cricketer?
Yeah, I think I've had lots of different coaches along the way. Like, I mean, I guess I was such a, I was a fresh, so I learned lots quickly from each coach. There was lots of information to receive. I think Claire Shillington, who I'm very good friends with, who I played my whole international career with, she was a big mentor for me. I remember quizzing me on the fielding positions and stuff like that. Like, I literally had no idea of cricket, so like, you know stuff like that. She helped me a lot, and we'd net together and stuff like that. And I'd still discuss my game with her now. She's retired a few years, but we'd still talk about it. And then in terms of when I started coming to Australia, it was because of Julia Price. She's current coach of the USA, but also does commentary and ex-international legend, basically. So she helped me a lot with my wicket keeping. And I'd still, go to her for guidance on keeping and stuff. I'm in South Australia now, but in Tasmania, she'd take me for a lot of sessions and stuff like that. But I'd definitely still touch base with her and just talk about cricket in general and my own game and keeping specifically. Yeah. So yeah, but there's lots of people along the way.
Absolutely. You've played with some great players and against some of the world's greatest players in the women's game. You played at some of the most iconic grounds in world cricket and been to so many countries while playing cricket. So being an international cricketer, you're very lucky to tour the world and experience those places. So if you had to choose your favourite player to play with and against, your favourite ground and your favourite country to tour in that you've played cricket in, what would they be?
Well, well, definitely my favourite ground that I played in was Mohali in India. We played New Zealand in a World Cup game there. That was brilliant. Like, the ground was perfect, and then the stadium was like this little old kind of, like, it's massive, but also had this kind of cute old style kind of feel to it. So I reckon India is probably my favorite, just purely because it's India in a World Cup as well. Like, that's awesome. You can't fault the love of cricket in India. It's deadly, and just playing in a World Cup is obviously an awesome experience. I think it's a tough one about players of playing with. I opened the batting last week actually for Glenelg with Talia McGrath. She's not bad, but that was only a once off before she went to the Ashes. But I think I really enjoy playing with Claire, who I mentioned. Like, she's obviously been a brilliant cricketer for Ireland, but like, she's been a support to me. She's an unbelievable batter who probably, if the Big Bash was around a bit earlier, might have had a few goes overseas and that and scored a lot of runs. Um, I think like probably Charlotte Edwards. I've played against her. She was my first international dismissal, and she's just a bit of a legend of the game. Great human being, and just churned out the runs. Like, she's unbelievable. So yeah, probably playing against her was pretty cool.
Yeah. Obviously, there's so many choices to choose from. It's very
I
hard to
know.
just narrow it down to one,
Yeah,
obviously. But that's the way it is when you play cricket, because you go to so many brilliant countries, grounds, and you play against good players and from the opposition teammates as well. So it's very hard to choose just one.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, and even playing like club cricket here, like I've played with Amanda Wellington and Darcy Brown. Like, there's all amazing cricketers, but I guess the I could pick any one of my Irish teammates, to be fair. When you travel as a team and you get to experience those things together, it's a different
yeah,
level.
absolutely, that bond and camaraderie
Yeah,
among the
exactly.
squad. It's what it's all
Yeah.
about, cricket. Mary, as we know, whenever you play sport, you have to make that tough decision. And you ask yourself, is this it? Is it time to retire? you're at the tail end of your career and you have started umpiring and you have that to fall back on after you finish playing. And we'll talk about your journey in umpiring a bit later on in this discussion. But do you take inspiration from players who are a similar age to you, men or female, that have played cricket but have continued to get better and better as they get older? Like, for example, from England, Jimmy Anderson, who's 39 years old. And he's getting better and better with each game. And he's got that desire to improve and get better as a cricketer. And you can see that because he's played over 160 test matches, 600 wickets, one of England's prolific bowlers they ever had in test cricket. As long as you are fit, healthy, and still contributing with both the gloves and the bat, do you still feel like I can keep playing for a while yet?
Yes. Yes, I do. I'd have to say I do take inspiration because, like, look, let's be fair. There's a lot of things that we deal with from society, and you go, "Oh, you're too old to be playing. You're too like once you hit 30, it's too old." So you do have to deal with that as well. So it is good to see other players doing it. So you don't be like, "No, it's okay." Like if you look at Mitali Raj and Julian Goswami, they're about to play in the 50 over World Cup, and they've been playing at this level for a lot longer than I have. That's for sure, and they're still taking wickets and scoring runs. So they'd be a big inspiration. It's Darren Stevens, isn't it? The bowler in the
Yes.
UK. Yeah, like he's just taking wickets for fun. So yeah, so people like that are obviously, and Jimmy Anderson, he's such an athlete. I don't know. I'm not sure dropping him for the West Indies tour was the right decision, but that's obviously not my choice. I do think there's a side to coaches where they go and they look at older players and go, well, they've got no future. What more can we put into them? And they really focus on the younger players. And I think it's always hard to find that balance where, what do we get from an older player? What can they give back in terms of experience and finding that balance? And I've noticed this in all sports and all squads. It's definitely the older players get a little bit less not less investment, but they're less inclined to stick with them because maybe the coaches don't know how long they're going to stick around and stuff like that as well. But definitely experience is undervalued in my view. But I will definitely be going as long as my body can, and then it's down to the selectors after that.
Absolutely. The selectors.
Mm.
Every player's worst enemy. The selectors. You don't like to get to the wrong side of them because
Yeah,
they pretty much decide your fate and career at the end of the
that
day.
is true. Yeah, yeah, but it's good.
Um,
It's better having selectors, by the way, than just one head coach. So yeah,
yes, that is good. And obviously that's backfired for England, obviously, as we all know.
yeah,
Not a wise choice to have the coach be head selector as well as coach. So lessons learned from England from
yeah,
an abysmal Ashes series, which reflected in the result when they got beaten 4-0. As an Australian fan, that was glorious to see. As an England fan, not so much. um, Mary, your career isn't done yet, obviously, and you've still got more to offer for Ireland. Do you ever take a moment to just reflect and take stock of your journey in cricket thus far as an international cricketer? What are you most proud of, and do you have any regrets from your journey thus far?
um, I don't I don't necessarily reflect a huge amount. Obviously, when I do things like this and I get to talk about what I've done, it's kind of like, oh, you've done a good bit actually. That's pretty cool. But I'm definitely grateful when I get to you know have opportunities like playing in World Cups and stuff. Or like a couple of weeks ago, I did a 4-day game, and I know I'm umpiring like half the Queensland Shield team and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool to when you get those opportunities to umpire that caliber of players. I don't know. I think probably playing in three T20 World Cups is probably what I'd say is my best achievement. I think in cricket, um, umpiring, I'm not sure.
Well,
It's
it's
all
only
pretty
just
like
begun, hasn't it?
yeah, it's only just begun. I mean, I've done fourth at the BBL, been on field for WBBL, WNCL, like all those kind of things are brilliant, and doing ICC qualifiers and stuff like that for the men. Like that's brilliant to do, but it's hard to differentiate between them all. To be honest, they're all brilliant experiences. And in terms of regrets, No, I don't think so. I don't think I regret anything really. Probably having a bit more self belief in my batting ability, but there's probably not many cricketers who don't have the same issue. Um, if they're
Yeah.
being honest with themselves. So yeah, no, I'm happy. I generally do what I want, and um, yeah, I wouldn't change much. I mean, I wouldn't change like if anything, like start playing earlier, but then I wouldn't have had my soccer career, which I
Yeah.
had some awesome experiences there too. So
No, that's brilliant. Obviously, still a lot more chapters to be filled in the book of Mary Waldron's cricket career,
hopefully
and
so.
hopefully umpiring career as well. Um, Before we move on to our topics today, Mary, and discuss these important topics that I have today, Mary, some young cricketers will be watching this episode today, boys and girls who want to get into cricket, inspire to be like you and like their male counterparts as well. What advice would you give to any young girl, boy who want to play cricket or sport in general and have ambitions to play at the highest level? What advice would you give to those boys and girls?
Um, I think I think keep training hard is there's nothing better than hard work. In my opinion, you don't have to be the most talented of sports people, but once you work hard at anything, you generally get rewarded for it. I know a lot of people try and settle into one sport. Like if they really love cricket, and they're like, "No, I want to play cricket," but actually playing a range of sports gives you different different skill sets, different friends, all the kind of different experiences. So I would say definitely keep playing different sports. And everybody has a different journey. I was listening to Usman Khawaja's little interview yesterday, just a quick snippet on Twitter, and he was saying he didn't get selected for the New South Wales under 17 team. Um, but look at him now, scored back-to-back centuries in the Sydney Test. So little setbacks are little setbacks, and actually, it's probably what makes you as a person later in life. And I think life's not perfect, so that's okay. Basically, would be my advice.
Absolutely. Just more importantly, have fun. Have fun and
Yes.
enjoy it. That's what it's
Mhm.
about. Sport and cricket, it's all about having fun. We tend to forget that sometimes. Take it
Yeah.
seriously as fans and players. But more importantly, it's just about having fun. That's what cricket's about. That's what the
Yeah.
game's about. It's a
That's
glorious
it.
game.
It
So
is.
now that's the talking about yourself bit done, Mary. Let's get into this
Excellent.
cricket
Good.
discussion. I chose some topics to talk about and discuss today. The first one is about women's cricket in general. Uh, Mary, women's cricket's come a long way since the early days, since the pioneers first started, back
Mhm.
in the old days, the 30s until now, when women started playing test matches and branched into ODIs and T20s now, and the game's growing around the world, which is fantastic. Many young girls taking up the game here in Australia, and I'm guessing in Ireland as well. Good to
Mhm.
see young girls take up the game. Many people watching women's cricket around the world. The T20 World Cup final was an example of that in 2020 between
Mhm.
Australia and India, the final. Uh, and that showed that people are invested in women's cricket. That crowd was 86,174 people watched that game. Who would have thought that that amount of people will watch a women's game compared to back in the old days where a man and his dog was only at the ground,
Yeah.
essentially? We are seeing very talented and skilled women cricketers in the game. But Mary, women's cricket has a long way to go, and there's many barriers facing the women's game today. Since you started playing cricket, what have been the big changes in women's cricket from when you started to now?
Um. Well, I think just the support around the game. I know certainly in Irish terms, we wouldn't have necessarily had physio support, gym support, that kind of stuff. And now we have full time physio, we've got full time gym. Well, although we're not available full time, but hopefully full time contracts will be around the corner for us. But I think that support around players, it has definitely grown. And I mentioned to you chatting earlier, certainly for Ireland, when I first started playing, I used to have to explain what cricket was to people. And now I don't. So that kind of notoriety about the game is becoming more popular, as is a massive shift in Ireland, because it's just, the more people know about the game, the more support it'll get, the more we'll get from the government and Sport Ireland and stuff like that. So that's a big difference for us. Numbers playing wise, I'm not sure exactly. I should probably know that statistic, but it's definitely growing, and there's a lot more women's teams growing and popping up in different clubs around Ireland, which is great. Overall, yeah, I guess it's a funny one. If with the MCG, I actually was there. It was amazing. And I've been to the MCG plenty of times. I saw Warney get his 700th wicket. And been there for the Boxing Day Test matches. So I'm very fortunate. But like the feeling of walking up with my friends, and just the buzz around and going, this is a women's final. Like that was unbelievable. I have to say it was such a proud moment. I'm getting a bit emotional here, but
Yeah,
I feel like you're like, who would have thought it? And I was like, actually, a lot of people would have thought it, but nobody in a decision making role ever thought it. The kind
yeah,
of way. So I'm so like Cricket Australia are brilliant in what they do in terms of supporting the women. Like it's not equal by any chance, but it's a different road for women and men. It's just a different beast basically. But it's definitely very well supported, and certainly with the domestic contracts and stuff like that, it helps as well with the international contracts alongside. But even the things they do, like they say international men's cricket, international women's cricket. It's not cricket and women's cricket, and they were a real world leader in that respect. So I think they really started the ball rolling, and other countries are following. So that's been a massive shift, and I'm not surprised that there was that many people there. To be honest, like it was, you know, like it's such a good like watching Australia play. Once you're not on the receiving end of it, it's great to watch.
absolutely. They are the dominant force in women's
Yeah,
cricket at
they
the
are.
moment, and they probably are the favourites to win 50 over
Yeah,
World Cup next
they
month in
would.
New Zealand.
Yeah, I actually umpired. I umpired in an under 18 championship a few years ago, and I was like, oh my god, because I was like, you can see the talent in the pathway, and you're like, the churning machine is well and truly oiled. They're unbelievable.
Absolutely. You touched on a little bit there about the comparisons. Does that frustrate you? Should we compare men's and women's sports in general, but in cricket, we do that all the time, where, oh, this is not as good as the men's game, for example, because we're so used to watching men's cricket. And probably those people are not invested in women's cricket and don't see that women cricketers are very skilled, talented, they know what they're doing, but it's never going to be the same as the men's game. It's the same game, but played differently in two different ways. Does that frustrate you as a female cricketer when you hear about those comparisons
Um,
at all?
yeah, it is frustrating. I think the world is changing a little bit and going, but it's all about that education piece. It's like, how on earth do you expect it to be the same when women are professional, 5 minutes, and men have been professional, for the last however long. Even if the men weren't professional, they were getting coaching in their club. They were playing on good wickets. Even now we struggle to play on good wickets and stuff like that. So it's never going to be like for like until we've played professionally for the last 50 years on good pitches and had top quality coaches. So, and I think that goes for all sports really. Obviously, the physiological makeup of men and women are naturally different. So, there's always going to be differences. But I think the more educated people get in the general public, the less it happens. And even like commentators, they might say, "Oh, her actions like Brett Lee's and stuff like that," and that's it's making it relevant for people and going, "Oh yeah, it's not just a women's game; it's actually a cricket game." So there is sometimes a comparison can be good and be helpful, but I think when it's if people are criticizing it, saying it's not the same game, that's not really that's not helpful either in terms of, well, we're potentially not going to hit sixes on a 80-meter boundary, are we? But in another 5 years, after another 5 years of gymming and stuff like that, we certainly might be able to. But it can be frustrating, but also I can see where they're coming from as well. It happens in all sports. Like I think eventually, because certainly in sports like rugby, where it's all just pure power now with the men's um, with men's teams, and you can see the women's teams have to have a little bit more skill. and tactics. So I think actually slowly the women's game will start taking over in many sports where it's just too much about power in men's sports.
Absolutely. Women test matches, Mary, they're becoming more scarcer these days. And we saw an amazing test match recently in Canberra for the Women's Ashes, and that went down to the wire. And for those who are wondering, I wrote an article about that on our blog page for the podcast, outlining the future for women's test matches. And I believe there is a future for it. But at the moment, it's not going anywhere. Only 3 countries, potentially 4, will play it. South Africa are going to play a test against England in their summer this year. Australia and England, India play it in a multi-format series. That's the best way to incorporate a test match. Mary, the women's team for Ireland, they played a test match in 2000.
Yes, before the men, yes.
Yes, they did. And the men, 17 years later, got that chance in 2017. Which was a proud moment.
You can imagine the steam coming out my ears when everyone was like, it's the first test match. And I was like, no, it wasn't.
No, that is incorrect. The women played the first in 2000.
Yeah.
And that was their only test, by the way, and that's it. So, Mary, would you like to see more women's test matches being played? And does the team and yourself think about playing test matches?
To be honest, for ourselves, we just want more fixtures. That's always our go-to with Cricket Ireland. Every year, we're when we're looking to improve, we're like, we'll just take more fixtures. So absolutely, we'd take a test match for sure. I've always said I'd love to play. My batting style is probably suited to it a bit, but obviously just the nature of it and testing yourself over those 4 days, not 5, but it would be brilliant. But it's not our priority for Ireland, but absolutely I would love to see more test matches playing. And I had this discussion actually the other day with a guy, and I think potentially the lack of it has to do with the lack of professionalism in the women's game as well. Like if you only get girls off annual leave for 2 weeks, you might get 5 ODIs and 3 T20s, or 1 test match and do it so actually it had probably been maximizing the time, where I think now with the teams being more professional and available more, we'll start to see more test matches. And look, there's boring men's test matches out there. They happen all the time. So there's no harm in having a boring women's test match every now and again either. The other small issue with that is that domestic women's cricket, there's no longer format. We don't play anything longer than 50 over cricket. So it will take it's just naturally going to be more difficult for people to bat. Like at least Perry's a freak, like scoring Heather Knight and stuff like that. They're unbelievable cricketers who can turn it around in test match cricket, and they unless they've played men's cricket, they won't have played anything longer than a 50 over game. So they're just unbelievable cricketers. But it does to go to that and change, and then obviously that's another comparison. It's like, well, it's not like the men's, and it's like, well, again, different products, different backgrounds of the players. You've got to give it time, but absolutely, and you learn way more about cricket as well, in those longer format games, and you get more of a chance to express yourself and hone your skills. But definitely, I'll be keen for longer formats for sure.
Absolutely, and I'm guessing the women love playing ODIs and T20s because you're playing cricket. But you would like to do something different for a change rather than just play ODIs and T20s all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it is no different. Like we grow up, I was a fully fledged adult, but people grow up and they're, they know Test cricket's the pinnacle, but we actually aren't ever given the opportunity to play it. So, it's no different. People like men and women aren't different in that respect. They want to reach the top of the game. They're, we're all competitive beasts. So, not being given that option is always it's always hard. So yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't you want anything different? Yeah,
absolutely. If the ICC are listening, get your skates on. The ball is in your court, ICC.
Yeah.
Every cricket nation, let's have a discussion and get it done, because people want to see test series and they want to see more women's test matches. Let's hope in the future that will happen, and that will be a glorious day when it does.
That's it, yeah.
We mentioned this earlier about full-time and part-time professionals. Is women's cricket a level playing field at the moment, Mary? Because you have teams who are miles ahead of everyone else, like Australia, England, India, and then you have teams like Ireland, all those lower ranked teams down below, sort of like men's cricket in a way. But some countries have full-time players, others have part-time players, and those players who are part-time are often doing study or looking at other ways to make a living and support themselves in life, which is important, obviously. And then some players are leaving cricket in the women's game because they love playing cricket, but it's not a viable or sustainable option for me going long term. I have to do something else. So it's sort of like the old days, like in men's cricket, where you're getting paid peanuts for playing a test match, for example. It's sort of like that in the women's game at the moment, because you're not professional, you're not training all year, you're training part of the year, and then the quality goes in the game. So is it there at the moment, the way it's happening at the moment, or do you think more can be done on this?
Look, I think there's always more can be done, but I think it's definitely in a good place. Although I did see a tweet recently about the Indian women not being paid. Now, potentially they are, and it's just not publicly announced. But like stuff like that from one of the top boards in the world is pretty disappointing to see. The contracts only went till the end of the year, I think, and are obviously in a new cycle now. So, and obviously things like the IPL, and you're like, that's just screaming. Like even the top male players or ex-male players are shouting for that, and that's really good support for the women's game. So stuff like that is kind of, it's frustrating, and you're like, there's so much scope for growth there. But at the same time, there's teams like for example, Thailand, they made their players fully professional, and look how much they've come on in the few years. And it's all about growing the game in countries like Thailand, because they're never going to have the same kind of player base as they would in like, England or Australia until it becomes a mainstream sport.
Absolutely.
So
it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
But it will eventually happen someday.
Background noise there.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to our next topic. Let's talk about women's cricket in Ireland. Let's talk about the national team. Obviously, Mary, before we started our chat today, we talked a little bit about the last international tournament that you played as a team, which was the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup qualifiers in Zimbabwe last November. And unfortunately, that was brought to an end abruptly due to what's going on at the moment. Unfortunately, you didn't qualify. You won one game, you lost one. That must have been very hard to deal with as a team, Mary, knowing that we won't be qualifying, we won't be playing in New Zealand next month. How did the team cope with that disappointment?
To be honest, it was a weird time, because like there was actually when things started to happen, it was actually nearly like a health and safety kind of issue. And you're like, oh God, we're going to be stuck in Zimbabwe for the next, whenever the borders open. So it was, there was lots of thoughts that were bigger than cricket at the time. I think reflection is obviously is good, but yeah, I've never actually played in a 50 over World Cup before. I know Ireland has played in many 50 over World Cups, and we have qualified previously, but the likes of the West Indies and Pakistan became professional and then overtook us in the rankings. There was a day when we'd beat Pakistan fairly regularly and be no issues, no one would even blink an eye. So and that's obviously changed slightly. But I personally have never played. So it's obviously, 12 years I've been playing. We haven't qualified for a 50 over World Cup. So it was always going to be an outside chance for us. We'd have to beat a few teams higher ranked than us. But we obviously had the second carrot of qualifying for the next round of the championship, which has been up to 10 teams, because the 50 over World Cup is only 8 teams, which is, it's disappointing that that's all, but that's the ICC's decision, and we can't do much about that. So yeah, we were disappointed, but certainly knowing the bigger picture for Ireland in cricket, and having secure fixtures for the next 3 years in the championship, for me, that was the let's say the more important goal. And we reached that, which was good. We're ranked 9th in the world currently. We've overtaken Sri Lanka, so that was yeah. So that was it's weird. We were happy that we qualified, but doing it not by playing, it didn't feel it. There was kind of it was very flat. Like there was no emotion. It was weird. It was definitely a weird feeling. That's for sure. But yeah, yeah, because we just found out. Yeah, we found out after we did a training session, because one day we were told we were going home, and then the next day we're like, well, actually, we might be going to Dubai to play the rest of the tournament. So we were just doing a training session, and then, like somebody said, there's a press release from the ICC. So we kind of just sat in shock for a few minutes. We were like, oh God, what's just happened? So yeah, it was mad, but yeah, definitely very, very happy the way it worked out in the end, obviously. But yeah, not ideal circumstances.
Of course, safety comes first, absolutely. And
yeah.
times, absolutely. Obviously, in the ICC had to act. Unfortunately, this does not stop for cricket or any sport or life at the moment. And that leads me on to my next point that I want to discuss with you. Playing in bubbles and mental health and well-being has become such prevalent in these times over the last couple of years. We've seen players take a break saying, I can't do this, I can't go through all this stress, troubles, being away from home, family. Obviously, when you're playing as a cricket team, your family, of course, and you support each other, but you can't go into your teammate's hotel room like you did before because of all this. So how's the team adapted to playing cricket in this new, strange world, Mary?
Yeah, it's definitely, look, I'm pretty lucky in the fact that I'm introvert and I don't mind spending time by myself, basically. I also was able to, I know coming back from Zimbabwe, I had to do hotel quarantine. So, but I brought my work laptop, so I was able to do stuff. So I've been pretty fortunate in terms of the amount of quarantine I've had to do and dealing with it. But it's definitely a challenge for a lot of people. And actually, I remember the first tour I came back, it was about maybe 7-8 months ago, and we were in the hotel in Dublin, and I just wanted to go into the girls' room for a cup of tea, but I couldn't. And I was like, this is weird. I was like, I just want to have a chat, nothing too serious. Like, I don't want to go into town shopping or anything. I just, wanted to have a cup of tea. But yeah, it is tricky. And I know a lot of the time with COVID as well, we'd have single rooms, which is something we've been advocating for, actually, part of the Players Association. But that can be difficult as well. So what we've actually asked for is if people want to share, that they can, so they actually have a roommate to bounce off and feel like they're, they have support there and somebody to talk to. So it's been a balance, because others are really uncomfortable with that. So trying to support players through that. But it's definitely a weird time. But I think it's good as well. I think we're in a place now, certainly with sports people, that we can talk about things, and people are pulling out of tours, which is, it's not nice to see, but it's good to see that they can do that and they don't feel the pressure, and they're talking openly about it, which is a really, really good thing to see, because that's, mental health is not a new phenomenon, nor cricketers suffering from it on long tours. Cricket's always been, like, if you look at Ashes tours, they go for months and stuff like that. So it's not a new phenomenon, but players definitely feel more comfortable about talking about it, which is great.
Absolutely. And being a part of cricket teams, it's a family, of course. You have close bonds with each other and friendships which will last forever, long before you retire, after you retire. And
it's very important. The thing you miss the most, I think.
Sorry?
I think that's the thing you miss the most as well, is the banter on the bus, not the
everyone's sitting apart and all this stuff, distancing, and in the dressing room as well, obviously. But we have to adapt. It's a key word in cricket. We have to adapt.
That's it.
But it's here for a while now, obviously. Mm-hmm. So, Mary, let's talk about your role in the team. You play a very important role, being the wicketkeeper. Wicketkeepers are
Yes,
important.
extremely important.
I've noticed many times when you've kept wicket, and I think you know what I'm going to say here. You don't wear a helmet.
No, it's my
Yes, you
mask.
wear a
Yeah.
baseball catcher's face guard. Is it
Yes. Yeah.
because you're uncomfortable with the helmet? Tell us the story behind that.
It's just purely for fashion reasons. I'm joking. It's awful. I actually forget that I'm wearing it. It's quite light.
Yeah,
So when I see pictures, I'm like, oh Jesus. But no, it was when I first started playing. I obviously put a helmet on, and if I went down the leg side, I'd dive. I'd like dive like a football goalkeeper, soccer
yeah.
goalkeeper, and I'd bang my head, and you'd be like, "This is ridiculous. How does anybody wear this?" So I just googled it, and that's what I came up with, and I've worn it ever since. So it's been, yeah, it's not pleasing on the eye, but it's very effective.
But
Um,
it's so you.
yeah,
Everyone
well, it
can
is, yeah,
identify. Oh, that's Mary on the field.
yeah,
You know
exactly,
she's playing today because she's got the baseball
yeah,
catcher's face
and
guard on.
the top
And
notch,
by
yeah,
the way, if people question about is that legal? Yes, it is. The
yes,
ICC have approved that type of equipment.
yeah, they
Mary
have,
should know because
and
she
actually,
knows all the playing conditions.
I know all the
Of
play
course,
conditions. Yeah, yeah, of course. But
it's
they
it's
don't
been
have
approved by.
to.
Yeah, sorry, man. Yeah,
Yeah, you
go
don't
on.
have to actually wear anything standing up to the stumps in international cricket. So I could wear it. It's better than nothing, I think. But yeah, I
Yeah,
can't actually
obviously.
wear it in grade cricket in Australia, which is um, it's upsetting. So I've spent a lot of money on a titanium helmet that is very light and has a little cutout at the back. So I've gotten used to that now, at least.
Yes, often
Um,
keepers have that cutout when they
yeah,
crouch because the necks, the
yeah,
helmet when you crouch, the
yeah.
helmet's
It
touching the
just
neck.
annoys me
So
because I have to braid my hair to put it on instead of leaving
yes, you've got
my
quite
top
long
knot.
hair. So I
Yes.
thought it was because of the hair. You want to protect the
No,
hair.
it was literally because I didn't even know footwork existed when I started to keep. So
Yeah.
obviously now it's fine because I don't have to dive with a helmet on. But standing up to the stumps, if I went down the leg side, I'd just jump. But now obviously I've developed my skill sets. So
Do you always wear it, or do you take it off and just put it on the
uh,
ground, or give it to
oh,
the?
when I'm standing back, yeah, I take it off. Yeah, but up
Yeah.
to the stumps, I'd always have it on. I tried actually once to not wear. We played England in a game, and Sarah Taylor wasn't wearing a helmet, and I was like, oh, I wonder what it's like just without a helmet because I hadn't really thought about it. So I was out, and we were just in the middle of training, and one of the girls was practicing off a couple of steps, just her bowling technique. So I
Yeah.
was there just catching for her. Anyway, I clipped the top of the stump and just straight into my nose.
Oh.
It didn't break it, thankfully, but I had a bit of a bruise across here and two black eyes, and I was like, I'll be wearing my mask from now on.
Yes. Important tip for young keepers out there: wear your
Yes,
helmet when up
get
to the
used
stump,
to it. Yeah, yeah.
because a very serious injury happened to former South Africa wicketkeeper Mark Boucher.
Yes,
He was up to the
yeah.
stumps. He didn't wear any sunglasses. Look what happened. The bail dislodged and
No,
went into his eye.
that was just
And
so unlucky. So
mm,
unlucky.
and that's
Yeah,
why the ICC have introduced tethered bails.
yeah.
Uh,
Still haven't seen them actually in use.
yes. So they are allowed to use them in international cricket, but we don't
Yeah,
implement that. But that's the safety
yeah,
feature. After what
mhm,
happened there, that was a horrific injury.
yeah, yeah.
So
Really
important
sad.
as a
Yeah.
keeper, wear your helmet and glasses just in case.
Hmm.
But your role is very important, Mary, because in the team, because you're a senior player and mentor to young players, are you?
Hmm.
Being the elder
Yeah,
statesman,
yeah.
um,
I teach them
obviously
all
the
how to
youth,
sing. Yeah.
yeah, obviously the youth bring that energy into the team and doing things that you think, oh, okay, that may be a bit weird, or maybe it's just old age or something. I don't know. So, how important is your role as the mentor and senior player in this young Irish team? You've got some veterans as well, I'm guessing, and some young players. How important is it to help those younger players in their journey in international
Yeah,
cricket?
I do think it's an important role. I just from going through the journey not that long ago myself and and learning about it, I think it's always good to be there as that support and tell them nothing seems as bad as it is right now. But certainly we had four senior players retire after the 2018 World Cup. So we actually have quite a young squad. So actually I see my role is pretty important to be there for any questions, like just any cricket questions, because it's as I said, it's a very young squad, and just to be support there for the captain. And obviously, naturally, as a wicketkeeper, you're in charge of keeping everybody up and about on the field, so keeping that energy level high. And I'm generally, if there's any messing to be done, I'll be doing it, or pranking somebody, it'll be me. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I was going to ask that. Are you a chirpy keeper or a quiet keeper?
I'm chirpy might not be the right word. I like to sing and I'll have a chat, but I don't do a lot of sledging because my skills might not back it up the far end. So that would be a bit of a fruitless. Fruitless. I did say to Elise Perry once during the one of the World Cups we were playing. She was batting down the order, and then against us, I think she was batting 3. Anyway, she blocked a ball, and I was like, Ash Gardner would have hit that for 6. Anyway, next ball was a full toss that went for 6. I was like, okay, just
I better stop.
That's the last time.
I better keep to sticking to what I know best, and that's keeping.
Yeah. So there's no.
Yeah.
I just it was one of those moments you're like, yes, I'll just crawl into this hole. Thanks.
Yeah, it's like.
But no, I generally sing something stupid or chat away about what's happening in the game or whatever. But I wouldn't. I'm
absolutely
trying.
And for us who don't know about the women's team, about these young players, who should we be looking out for? What are the names that we should be looking out for in the future?
Well, I think Orla Prendergast is one of the best young cricketers out there at the minute. She's unbelievable. She bowls quick, in swing, unbelievable athlete, and like her balance at the crease. Unfortunately, she didn't score runs. We were actually in Zimbabwe twice recently for the qualifiers, and we were there for a tour the month before as well. She didn't quite score the runs that she can, but like again, she's only been playing international cricket for a handful of seasons, which includes COVID, so not that long. But watching her in the nets, her balance is unbelievable. Like, I think she's got so far to go. She could definitely play in franchise cricket around the world. I'm sure you've heard of Gabby Lewis as well. She got a chance to play in the 100 this year. She scores a lot of runs, hits the ball very hard, and is definitely. Actually, she made the ICC T20 Team of the Year, I think. This year, she's definitely one to watch out for, and I think one who's definitely going to take over my role as messer in the team is Leah Paul. She bowls left arm spin and can open the batting or bat down the order left-handed, and she's just a great girl around the team. She'd be brilliant in any franchise cricket, but is just she's one of those silent cricketers. She just goes and does it, and you don't know. All of a sudden she scored 50 and taken 3 wickets, and you're like, how did that happen? So some very talented girls to watch out for there.
Absolutely. Does the women's team take inspiration from the men's team in what they've done over the years? Like, we've seen some good performances recently, especially last year in the T20 World Cup. Curtis Camphor took 4 wickets and 4 balls, which was unbelievable. And also Ireland in World Cups, like, of course, upsets. Like in 2011, Kevin O'Brien scored that 113, and they won by, beating England by 3 wickets in that run chase in Bangalore. And 4 years prior to that, in 2007, they won against India in that famous win.
That's Pakistan, but it's okay. Don't tell.
Sorry, against Pakistan. Yes, it was against Pakistan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think it was on St. Patrick's Day as well.
It was. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I don't know where I got India from.
That's
that out of my notes.
I'm not sure you'll be forgiven, but that's okay.
No, but it was Pakistan, as you say. Yes, I do remember now. So I got that wrong. My mistake, everyone. But they've done some amazing things. Do you take inspiration from them, and do they come in and help the women's team when they can from time to time?
Yeah, they do. To be honest, Irish cricket's very small. It's probably a little bit like Adelaide in terms of player population and stuff like that. So there's we've got brothers and sisters like Laura Delaney, the captain. Her brother plays Gareth Delaney, and he's making his way up the ladder in terms of stuff. Like there's a couple of boyfriends, girlfriends, and there's been husbands and wives. So there's very much we're very much definitely involved in each other's cricket, and the guys will come in to be fair, they have a busy schedule. Actually, they don't come to that much training. I know Kevin O'Brien did a session with us years ago, and John Mooney would have come in and done a lot of fielding sessions. And I know George Ockrell would help Leopold, that left arm spinner. So there's a little bit of crossover, but in terms of, we'd see each other around the clubs and stuff like that, and they are supportive in that way. And also with our Players Association, they do drive a lot of the support for us as well, and vice versa. So there's definitely, we support each other. Whether the girls take inspiration, I can't answer that for them, but definitely I'm an Ireland cricket fan. So I remember all of those things you've just said, and I remember I wasn't allowed to go on the internet in work for personal use. So I was actually listening to Kevin O'Brien on the radio score that century. So I was running up and down the stairs and work by myself like a lunatic when that happened. So yeah, I definitely, any inspiration. Like, we've been compared to, anytime we win, like I've beaten Pakistan, we've beaten Bangladesh, we've beaten South Africa. So every time we win a game like that, everyone's like, oh, you're like the men in 2007. And I was like, well, we were like the men in 2007, 10 years ago now. So what are we like now? But yeah, no, I love watching the men play, and especially on days like that is unbelievable.
Yes, I think currently they're in Oman, I think. I saw for the T20 World Cup qualifiers, I believe. Okay. It wasn't a great T20 World Cup campaign from the men last year. Let's hope they can bounce back and be back in Australia in October, November.
Well, they bounced back with a nice series win over the West Indies. So
yes,
that wasn't a bad response.
Series win against the West Indies in an ODI series, which was an amazing achievement from the men's team, I should say. Yeah. The future of Irish cricket, Mary, and the women's team, what's the future in store for the team? Where do you see yourselves in the next few years? Do you have goals, ambitions? Do you want to win series, tournaments? What's the future like for?
Yeah, well, I think it's in our hands at the minute. We've been fortunate enough to qualify for the next round of the championship, so we have guaranteed fixtures for the next few years, and hopefully with that it'll bring more professionalism and full-time contracts. So it's really in our own hands where we want to take it. We've been crying out for fixtures, and we'll have them now. So you'd love with that time to maybe get up to somewhere in and around that 8th ranking. Now, I'm not sure if this matches our coaches' KPIs or whatever, but I do certainly think that we can be beating the teams around us, given the opportunity. We won our series in October away to Zimbabwe, so that was, from what I can remember, our first tour win away. So stuff like that, we'd like to get more opportunity to do that, and absolutely be winning tours home and away, and just really making the most of the opportunity. So it's in our hands, as I said, I think, and we just really need to grasp the opportunity, and for me, certainly leave it in a better place, and hopefully the girls reap the rewards of our hard work over the next few years.
Absolutely. It's about trying to set up the next generation.
Yeah.
Put them in a good place for Ireland.
Yeah, and that's what I said, qualifying for the World Cup would have been brilliant, and I'd love to be in New Zealand now quarantining. Yes. But, having the opportunity for guaranteed fixtures for the next 3 years is priceless, in my opinion. So
that ODI Women's Championship, sort of like the Men's Cricket World Cup Super League, sort of qualification for the next World Cup, but it's a bit different. It's about
just less
over a year basis, like the WTC in a way. It's like that new cycle starts and that. So we should wait and see what happens in the future. Let's hope success for both the men's and women's teams. The World Cup series wins and big upsets like the men did in the past. Mary, our last topic today is talk about umpiring, your specialty. It's very rare to see a current international player take up umpiring at the same time. Usually that happens when you retire, or many international players say, umpiring? Well,
yeah, no chance.
I'm done with cricket. I'm not umpiring. He wants to stand in the field for 90 overs in a test match, giving people out or not out. But obviously it's a big part of the game.
Yeah.
And why did you go into umpiring? Why made you be fascinated to try on?
Yeah, I think. Sorry, it's stuck on in the door here beside me. I think I had the opportunity when I was coaching. I don't like coaching, by the way. I found that out. But when I was coaching, I had to umpire the games and stuff as well. It's just an underage team. So I think just by the time that I have when I come to Australia in the winter, I actually have time to do it. I can't on my visa. I can't do anything else. So apart from umpiring, so I have the time to actually do it alongside my playing, and I think others are wise and have a job and actually earn some money. So I think it just fits in with my lifestyle at the minute. But I obviously do enjoy it because I could be going off traveling around Australia on the weekends and stuff like that. But I choose to go out and try and ruin people's days on a Saturday instead.
Absolutely, as all umpires do,
Mm-hmm.
on a Saturday or Sunday around Australia and even around the world, whenever
Yeah.
you have games of cricket on. So in 2019, you were appointed to the ICC Development Panel of Umpires. What's that experience been like on the panel?
Yeah, it's really good. I've had the opportunity to do men's T20 European qualifiers. So I've been to the Netherlands and I've been to Jersey to do those tournaments. So again, it's just more exposure to different teams, different conditions. Different expectations at an ICC level. So yeah, there are great opportunities. And actually, I think with umpiring as well, it's obviously very solitary, but you know, we go away with a team of 8 or 10 umpires. So you get to meet 8 or 10 different people from around the world. So there's always good banter and good crack outside of the games as well, there's good networking as well, and just meeting different people. It's really good. I'm on the panel with Claire and Eloise here as well, and Eloise is one of my best friends. So that's through umpiring, and it's definitely been worthwhile. But the ICC, it just gives it, it's a get more formal, and you've access to more coaching and things like that. So
Absolutely.
really good.
Being an international player, does that help you deal with umpiring international matches because you've been in that situation as a player and you know how to cope under pressure and have great mental skills to concentrate and focus on every ball?
Yeah, I think it does help. I think like you can do it without having played international cricket, but I think knowing, I've played in those ICC tournaments that I've umpired in, so I've obviously played in the women's and I've umpired the men's. I what the expectation is and how the game is run and what's the setup, and it's not like I'm going into this fresh new experience. So I think that helps in terms of just being comfortable in the environment, and certainly doing things like doing Big Bash and stuff like that when there's these superstars. But I've played, and we play in World Cups alongside each other and stuff like that, and I'm used to that kind of environment. So I'm not looking for autographs when I should be umpiring them or something like that. So
Yeah.
it's sorry, there's been dogs been strangled on the street there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think it helps, but again, you don't have to be an international player to be an umpire. But in my experience, obviously it's my experience that has helped.
Yes, I did ask Daryl Harper that question. I said to him when we had him on the podcast last year, he said, I asked him this question, he said to me, there's no advantage of being a past player or, who's played the game at the highest level before. Like most umpires in the men's game have played for their country and umpire.
Yeah.
He said there's no advantage whatsoever. It's however well you execute your skills and your training at the end of the day. And
I
that's
think
right.
there's just many different pathways to get to the same destination, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Now,
Daryl's a selector now, so whatever he says, he's absolutely right. Yes,
yes, he is. He is a Cricket Australia umpire selector.
Yeah, exactly.
And an interesting fact for people who, sorry,
my boss. Yeah.
Yes, he is your boss. Interesting fact with that for people who want to know about that chat that we did is that on before we were doing the chat, he said, I'm waiting for a phone call. Had to see if I got the job or not of being selector. And he said, I may need to rush down to Karen Wrighton Oval because there was a Shield game on or something. I may need to be there just in case. He said, no, we're good to go. We're all good to have the chat, and we had the chat.
Yeah.
And then he said, well, it's not a full-time role, so I can still play golf and enjoy that stuff. Enjoy my retirement. And when the summer comes around, make the tough calls as an umpire selector for Cricket Australia. He's a brilliant character, Daryl, and one of the great characters in the game, and certainly an umpire. And you must lean on him for advice and mentorship. We talked about that earlier when we talked about playing coaches and people you relied on. Have you asked Daryl about his experiences as an international umpire and got some tips and advice from him?
I actually, do you know what? I've been fortunate. I think we're fortunate in South Australia to have like Steve Davis and Simon Fry and Daryl here. So he's definitely been to a lot of our Secusa meetings. And he'd do presentations about different situations, and I've been on a panel with him. We did a Q&A, so I've heard plenty of his stories, and he's very forthcoming with his knowledge. So yeah, I haven't gone to him, actually picked up the phone and rang him, but I've definitely learned a lot from him for sure.
Absolutely. For anyone who hasn't known yet, that cricket.com.au wrote an article about you a few days ago, which was a brilliant read. I would leave a link to that in the description down below in this episode so people can read it, because it's an interesting read. And pretty much it summed up Mary's journey, and we've already talked about that. But you talked about umpiring men's Premier Cricket in Adelaide. You talked about how being a female umpiring men's cricket, they respond differently to you, if I can put it that way, in terms of behaviour and all that stuff. Yeah. So, and umpiring is such a male-dominated profession. They're so used to having a male there, but then obviously one of the games they have you, so it's a bit different. So how do they respond to you when you're umpiring their games on a Saturday or a Sunday? How do they go about their business?
I think it's fine. Like, I know in that interview, it is definitely it's developed over the years, and I think the guys in Adelaide now know me pretty well, so they're not afraid to give out to me if they don't if they think I've messed up or whatever. But I think, and just from comments, it's more comments from my colleagues being like, there's definitely not as much cursing when you're around, or they're much more polite. So it's not necessarily something that I've picked up on. It's more stuff that the guys say to me, that it's different. So I've built up a relationship with the guys in Adelaide. I think, well, not a relationship, but they know they can give out to me like they do the guys if they want. But certainly, like I know I said, I want them to treat me the same, but I can see sometimes whether they turn around and they're just, if I was a guy, they'd say something more serious than what they actually do. But I know it's more from guys that I umpire with, and they'll say, there's less cursing because you're around, or the guys are being more polite and stuff like that. So it's more generally actually from guys that I umpire with, and that's I get the feedback. So, but as I said, a little bit of less cursing is no harm.
Yeah, it is. Obviously, a lot of people do curse when they play cricket. It's such a frustrating game.
Yes, yes. I actually get fined. My team fined me on a Sunday for cursing. So, but I think that's because I'm Irish. It's a different kind of curse.
It's a different kind of curse, of course. No one can detect it because of your accent, so you can get away with it.
Exactly.
But in men's cricket, it's just like over the stump marks, you hear it. Some players, like batsmen, like Travis said, he got fined in the Ashes for saying that. He said, I'm not going to repeat it, but I think everyone knows what he said.
Yeah, and it is difficult because, it's your livelihood, and, cricket's such a frustrating sport, but at the same time, you're also a role model for everybody in the world. So it's such a
that's right.
Such a difficult position.
A lot of young kids watch cricket, and match referee, he's got a lot of ink in his pen, write his reports. You find under Article something 2.1 or something of the Code of Conduct or whatever.
Yeah.
And Mary knows all of the Code of Conduct off by heart, I'm guessing.
Of course. We just don't have time for me to recite it now, but of course I know it all. Yes.
And the playing conditions for ODIs and T20s, men's and women's, which are two different things for those who don't know. wait. Yes. As a player and as an umpire, you have goals and ambitions, as we do in life, that we want to achieve goals and ambitions. In umpiring terms, you set goals and you work a way to get there, little steps to get there. Because when people set out to do this job, they think it's going to happen overnight, but it doesn't. It's just like playing cricket. You've got to work your way up to the top to be an international umpire. It's just like playing. You either get picked up and selected like a player, and you get your opportunity. And that may be the only opportunity you have for years, and then they select you again. So, Mary, what goals have you set yourself in your umpiring career? Obviously, to umpire international cricket is probably one of them, of course, and maybe umpire some women's ODIs or T20s, even the odd test match if that happens. But what are some of the goals that you have in store for your umpiring career?
Well, it's interesting. Like, I know I've said before, like, I'd love to do a test match and, umpire a World Cup final and stuff, but like, a World Cup final is so out of my control. I have, I'd have to umpire in a World Cup first and things like that. But I think for umpiring, and you say, like, there's no point having a goal without a pathway for it. So, like, my goals are still very much in terms of playing, and once my focus is then on umpiring, I can actually, set realistic goals that require steps and can, I can mark them off rather than just having aspirations, basically, is which they are at the minute. So I think I'm in a good position. I've done my time in grade cricket here, made it onto the state panel, which gives me the opportunity to do the higher level games. And in Ireland, obviously I'm the ICC Development Panel. I'm on our elite panel, which I can do our first class cricket and things like that. So I'm definitely in a good position to keep climbing the ladder and keep ticking boxes. But it's only until I fully commit to umpiring that I'll actually, be able to set a timeline to actual goals. So I haven't.
Yeah.
I've only aspirations currently. The World Cup final in the Eden Gardens in India would be.
I have seen that. I have seen that in articles that you've said you want to umpire a World Cup final in Eden Gardens.
Yeah, but that's
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 going to happen. You never know with the ICC scheduling these days.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to also umpire in a tournament, get selected to umpire in a tournament, and then be brilliant in that tournament as well. So it's
if your team is not playing in the final.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
That's happened to many great umpires in the men's game, especially Simon Towful, for one, who I read his book, Finding the Gaps.
Yeah. And Simon's actually a great mentor.
Yes, he is. Have you spoken to him? Have you done some stuff with Australia over the years? Have you spoken to him personally or emailed him?
Yeah, no.
He's a very knowledgeable person.
Yeah, no, he's very good. And he's very good with his time, with his knowledge. He's a very good guy. Yeah, really. He's certainly early on in my career. He helped me a lot. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely, and he's one of those great people. Simon, obviously, you don't win 5 ICC Umpire of the Year awards in a row. For just being a good umpire. He was a very good umpire, one of the best in the business. Yeah. And then I'll probably have Daryl Harper behind him.
But you're only slightly biased. That's good.
Slightly biased, yes, I am.
Well, there's an Irish umpire did the final, the boys under 19s World Cup there, Rody Black. So
I did see that, yes.
Watch out for the Irish umpires.
Yes, the Irish are coming, everyone.
Yeah.
ICC, get more Irish umpires, get Mary on the final or whatever, come on, give her a chance. She's done all the hard work, I say. But we talked about female umpires. You talked about a few names there. Eloise, you must be very proud of her to umpire that women's test in Canberra. Did you say any words of encouragement to her, or just say, go for it, have fun, enjoy it, and make sure you do a good job?
I always feel like doing every second text message I think I say, I tell her I'm proud of her, because she's always doing something amazing. But look, if she was a terrible umpire, I'd still be proud of her because she's my best friend. So, but it's great. Certainly with the, the DRS, and that was our first kind of big tournament using DRS and stuff like that. So it's another step in an umpire career, and she handled it brilliantly. And I think they both did brilliantly on field for the test. Actually, they were under the pump and they nailed it. So yeah, it was
especially that last day with a lot of appeals, and it's often hard in a test match. You're under pressure, and they had Bruce Oxenford, who's an experienced umpire. Bruce retired in 2020-21 after the India series. He was part of the ICC for a while. Great to have his experience on the team as well.
Yeah,
and he said, I wanted to continue in domestic cricket to pass on my knowledge, which is very important, to pass on your knowledge and give it to others. And that's what umpiring in cricket's all about, passing on that knowledge. And they would have got valuable information and would have learned a lot from that experience, reviewing the game afterwards and just enjoying what was a brilliant test match. Also, Claire Poldersack, she was another pioneer in women's cricket in terms of umpiring. She had the opportunity against India last summer, before this one, as fourth umpire during that test match in Sydney, which was the first time that a female was the fourth umpire of a men's test match, which was unbelievable. And she's been the pioneer leading that female fight in terms of women's umpiring. And yourself and Eloise, here in Australia, but also around the world, and the ICC Development Panel of umpires have had some female umpires on there as well, and you would know them very well, of course. Keep in touch and all that, supporting one another. Mary, how do you see the future of female umpires in cricket?
The future is wonderful, I hope. It's hard to know, to be honest, sometimes, because I think decision makers don't really know what to do with us either, to be honest, because they're very much. I'm a weird one because I still play, so I can actually umpire women's international cricket. Well, I don't think I can anyway. I haven't been appointed to any games, but they tend to go the women umpire the women and the men go. So I am actually not too sure. Whereas we're like players, we want to play and we want to umpire the pinnacle of the game. Yeah. So, we want to go in both ways. So I actually, it's, I don't know where it's going, to be honest. And it's not an easy one to answer. And I'd say if you asked any umpiring administrator either, they haven't a clue either, because it's certainly new. I mean, I know Claire's been around for a long time, and she's been through the pathway here, and it's kind of, she's always done the women's tournaments and stuff like that. But I should be like, well, it's not seen as potentially the pinnacle by the administrators, because we're not, as a female cricketer, I know that I'm not treated as it's the best in the world. So why is it only going one way? So I'd like to see women's female umpires go as far as male umpires, and hopefully somebody gets on the elite panel someday. Whether the decision makers in the ICC do that, I don't know, or if they go with a female elite panel, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. That's a tricky one. I don't know.
It's sort of a bit of a tough question, because you can't really predict the future, I suppose. No one can. Yeah. So it's often hard to predict that far ahead. But do you see a female umpire umpiring a men's test match in the near future?
In the near future, no. But I genuinely can't see why not. I like, there's a lot of angst about it, and you're like, well, there's DRS there. Like, we're humans too. Men are humans. We're all, as I always say, I'm as deaf and blind as a man, so I'm okay to do it. But I think like there's a lot of player management and match management in that situation and scenario as well, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, if you're getting your decisions right, you're going to go that far. And if that's what DRS is there for, any big mistake. So there's no harm. It's not like a woman umpiring a game is going to ruin the game because she can't make a decision. Right. DRS takes that out of the equation. So again, it's a little bit like when Cricket Australia decided to support women's cricket and just go for it, and they just went for it. It's the same. Whoever's in that decision making role just has to go for it, because it's always, you're always told it's done on, on merit, but it's going to come to a point where
Yeah.
it's glaringly obvious it's not done on merit anymore. You know,
Yeah.
that kind of way. So,
Yes.
yeah. So we're somebody brave to
Yeah.
go for it, but also, like we are, as I said, it's with it's a whole new world and it's fresh, and we're still banking up that experience to get us to that level as well. So that's why I'm saying I don't necessarily see it in the near future, but it definitely should happen in the future.
Absolutely. And, it's such a tough gig to get into, really, umpiring international test match,
Yeah,
especially
and
men's.
you, there's a very small. It's a very small group to get into. To be fair, yeah.
It's a very elite panel.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be very good. They have very great umpires, and then you have very good umpires. So there's
Mm-hmm.
quite a gap between the two. I heard that once from someone, and it's right, because accuracy ratings, they take that into account as well. Are you good enough? Then you get reviewed after a certain amount of months or year, and then the panel gets rotated on an annual basis, which is good, keeps it fresh, get new people in there, see how they can go at international level. But I do hope that we do see it in the future and break down that barrier of the game, because why not?
Yeah.
Why not a woman can umpire, females test match? Why not can they umpire a men's test match? Do you see yourself as a role model and a trailblazer for female officials, Mary? Or do you don't see yourself as a role model? You see yourself as more as a person who's a female but umpiring?
Yeah, to be honest, that's something like I don't overthink it. Like it's just my life, so that's just what I do. I don't go, okay, you get out of bed, you're a role model, that kind of thing. But I guess I am. There's plenty of articles and stuff like that, and you do stick out as a woman when you umpire. There's no two ways about it. You're different, and so people talk about it. So yeah, I guess I am a role model, not necessarily a trailblazer, because it's obviously I'm following people, but yeah, I guess if you can't see, you can't be, and I'm one of those people that people can see, so I have to accept that.
Yeah, is that the same as a player as well? Women's cricket, is that the same answer that you'll give for that?
Yeah.
Or is it different?
I feel like it's different. I don't know. I don't. Again, I don't really overthink it, but I guess there's more. Umpires hopefully don't really notice, if that makes sense. You just kind of get on with your job and get out of there without, being murdered is always good. But with playing, I think you can be a bit more, vocal about it and try and inspire people to get into the game and stuff like that. Whereas with umpiring, it's less you're less trying to get. I know you're always trying to get people to umpire and stuff, but you've more more chance of getting people to play.
That's right.
Yeah, so it is a slightly different, and you can go and do an appearance or something. Not that we do them very often, but you could go to a school and be like, I play for Ireland. You come and try the game. Whereas with umpiring, you're not going out and doing those kind of things. So it's a slightly different form, but it's just more. It just makes it more normal to be a female official when people see you there. So players see it as a norm rather than a new phenomenon, basically.
Absolutely. I want to ask you about the umpiring ranks in Ireland. We touched on a bit about this throughout the chat. Are we seeing more people, men and females, take up umpiring roles within Ireland cricket, Mary?
Well, once we got the full membership status, we then had 4 international umpires. So that
And
that
they
was
are on the international
panel. Yeah.
For those who don't know, there's 2 types of panels: elite and international. You have 4 from your own country on that panel to do home international matches when the elite panel can't do it. Do continue, Mary. Sorry about that.
That's exactly it. So we didn't have that before. So obviously we have full member status only a couple of years, really. So that's that. They they didn't suddenly take it up, but that's the new panel that we have. I don't know actually the numbers. I think there's I'm saying the numbers are growing, but I've no idea really. I haven't noticed. I haven't noticed greatly, and I think actually COVID hasn't helped a lot of umpires. I know umpires have stopped because of COVID as well. So I think we're probably still in the balance, and officiating is never going to be the most glamorous thing in the world. So it's always going to be an uphill battle with recruiting and stuff like that. So the answer is I don't know, but I've taken a guess there.
Yeah. Well, just say don't know. It's the future. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But obviously, coming from a smaller country, obviously the talent varies from country to country. Some countries have good umpires who excel. Other countries are developing, and like other countries, like you don't associate playing cricket with, like in those European countries now who have T20 status. They have umpires from there who are just learning and developing, which they haven't come from a cricketing background before. So it will take time before we see those umpires break into panels and elite panels, international panels.
And it's more, to be honest, it's more the domestic structure, I think, in terms of the coaching. I mean, I'm really fortunate to be in the Cricket Australia pathway, and I get assessed every single game that I do. The match ref does a report on you. You have to do your own report and stuff like that. So those structures just aren't set up. There's not the same level of resources to do in the smaller countries. So, but I think like there's lots of associate members on the ICC Development Panel as well that I've umpired with them. So, and they'll always send an experienced mentor umpire as well as a match referee. So actually, that mix is really, really good from the ICC. So it gives less developed members, associate members, a chance to umpire and be mentored by more experienced umpires. So that's a really good thing. But yeah, everything takes time, and it really, there's way more Australian umpires because there's just way more Australian people into cricket, and then they naturally filter down, and the pathway is much stronger. The domestic setup is much stronger, so they have more opportunity to be umpiring higher level cricket as well. So.
Yes, and we can thank Simon Towfel for that, because most of what he's implemented, Cricket Australia, basically he created it. Basically, he created everything, even at the ICC as well when he was working there after he retired. So we can thank him. He's one of the pioneers, that's for sure, and a great person in the game. Mary, it's been an interesting chat, and it's been a bit of a marathon, everyone. I do apologise, but it's been very enjoyable. One more point to go before we finish up today, Mary.
Yes.
And some up-and-coming umpires may be watching this discussion or listening to it, wherever they may be listening or watching the podcast, are a bit unsure about how to go about things when they start out umpiring. So what tips and advice would you give to any young umpire or person starting out in the profession? What advice would you give them to finish up our discussion today?
Never been asked this one before. Well, first of all, I'd say give it a try. Lots of people are like, Jesus, no, I'd hate that. It'd be awful. But you don't know until you try it. It's actually not that bad. Yeah. And then if you don't like it, you don't ever have to do it again. So that's my initial one. But obviously, I'm assuming these people want to do it. I know this sounds really boring, but read your playing conditions. Because there's nothing worse. People will ask you what time's lunch and, how many overs have I bowled. And so just be prepared for your answers. But what my one piece of advice is, trust your instinct. Trust your instinct. If you think that's come off the edge, it probably has. If you think... it's, if he's inside edged it, but there's still a massive appeal, it's probably come off the inside edge. And it's much easier to sleep at night when you trust your instincts.
That's right. Always trust your gut, even if you are wrong. That's what Simon Towfel said, I think. I read in his book, Trust Your Instincts. And Daryl Harper said the same thing. You've got to trust your instincts. Even when I was umpiring.
Yeah, I must have listened to them.
Yes, I'm trusting my instincts, and players may disagree with that.
Yeah,
but he was umpiring the game. You're there to play, and I'm here to do my job.
And that's why umpires exist. If players were honest, we wouldn't need umpires.
Yes, that's why it's very hard when players umpire their own games, because you always have. I have to do that as well, sometimes as well, because in country cricket where I'm from, you don't have umpires, and you have to umpire when you're batting. That's the way it goes in cricket.
I've done that many a time in men's cricket. It's fun. Yeah,
it is fun, especially when your teammates say, "Hang on."
Yeah.
Did you fire me? I wasn't out. There was a thick inside edge. Are you blind or deaf? I was like, well, I panicked, okay? I panicked. It's not what you're meant to do. You're meant to be calm, take your time. As one umpire said to me, because an example of me umpiring, it was my first game, actually. Super nervous but excited. And I had a senior figure course, umpiring at Square Leg.
Good.
And I gave this LBW off a spinner, clearly in front of the stumps. He was gone. I rose the finger up straight away. I didn't do the Steve Bucknell and Rudy Kutzen slow death when he went like that.
Yeah.
I just went bang, straight up like that, you're gone. And he said, well, take your time. I said, well, it was out, so I'm not hesitating. I'm just going to give him out because it was out. But he said, just take your time and just reassess everything. Was it a fair delivery? Did it hit him outside the line or in line with the stumps? Was it an inside edge? And was it going to go on and hit the stumps? As you usually follow the rigmarole when it comes to an LBW decision, and you're taught that. The MCC do a great e-learning course on the laws where they do have a flow chart about LBWs and how to do that. Often people get confused, and often when people watch cricket, it's easy for us umpires, Mary, who know the laws and playing conditions. Even though I don't umpire international cricket, but I read the playing conditions anyway.
Wow.
Because people who get into cricket don't know the laws fully. And the laws are the standard laws of the game, but playing conditions are an add-on to the laws. So it's very different. And people say, hang on, is it 2 bounces over the shoulder in international cricket and test matches, or 1 in ODIs and T20s, and then it's a no ball? And an interesting fact, Mary, I think you would know this, is when the ball's pitching off the pitch and it's a no ball. But the interesting fact that many people don't know is the pitch is not actually cut to 10 feet.
Yeah, I just go on the grassy bit. It makes your life easier.
Did you know that before I even did that?
Well, I
did hear that from an umpiring seminar that I watched a few ages ago. They talked about that. They said there's nothing in the laws to say that the pitch has to be cut to 10 feet. It's 22 yards in length, but it's not cut to 10 feet.
Yeah,
if it was cut to 10 feet, it would be a bit more extended.
It's marked, isn't it? Yeah. I think,
And then, you have to estimate, okay, did it? Not many people know that.
Yeah, I would just keep it simple.
Keep
if
it
it
simple.
hits the real grassy bit.
Cricket's
The only place that'll be tricky if it's in New Zealand, because you can't tell the difference between the wicket and the grass around it.
They always produce green tops.
They do.
You have the lines in the field, and then there's the pitch. Where's the pitch? Where the stumps are, mate? That's the pitch.
Where the side screens
are. On this. I'm sure you played on some green seamers in your time.
I have a few. Yeah.
Get caught on a sticky wicket, as we say, a bit wet, seaming around a bit, especially in Ireland, drizzle. Yeah. Miserable weather to play.
Miserable.
Cricket.
Actually, Scotland's been the worst for that, to be fair. I've played
England's worse.
Abysmal weather in Scotland. Yeah.
Well, Mary, it's been a marathon, and I hope everyone stuck by us for this chat. It's been a long one. I've had a great time speaking to you today. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. It's been an interesting day, hasn't it?
It has, for sure.
It has. With people who didn't know, we had a few technical problems. So we were chasing around and trying to get things going, but we eventually got there in the end. The important lesson to learn from what I experienced today is adaptability in cricket. We have to adapt. That's very important. And we adapted today, and we were able to get the episode out for everyone. So I hope everyone enjoyed my chat with Mary today, our first international cricketer that we've had on, second international umpire behind Daryl Harper. I think, Daryl, you're off first place, and I think Mary's chat's just gone ahead of you there.
Oh, no, Daryl.
It's been an enjoyable chat, Mary. I've really enjoyed it.
He's a selector. Daryl, you're number one always.
Yes, he's a selector as well for Cricket Australia in terms of umpiring. But it's been an enjoyable chat, Mary. Your journey is such an amazing journey. Unique, you will say, from others who have gone into cricket. But you're a very talented cricketer, footballer, and we didn't mention it, but I have seen some images of you playing hockey. So you played hockey as well.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
So you're a jack of all trades.
That's it. The joys of being a female athlete. You can play.
Yes, try everything. Yeah. See what I like, and if I don't like that, I'll try this. But I hope everyone's enjoyed it. Mary, any words to say before we send off?
Nothing at all. Thank you very much for having me on. It was a great chat.
Thank you, Mary. And to those who are watching, Hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you to everyone who supported the channel recently. I really appreciate all of the support. I've been overwhelmed by a lot of your support. We got to our triple century of subscribers, which is fantastic. Now it's time to get past Brian Lara's 400 and then his 501 in first class cricket. So if we can do that, everyone, that'll be great. But I appreciate your support, everyone. I hope you enjoyed my chat with Mary today. It's been fascinating listening to her journey in cricket, and I'm super lucky to get these opportunities and meet people within our game who really inspire us and who are just great people. And Mary's one of them. And until next time, everyone, keep safe and bye for now.